Welcome to this week's episode. Today, we're doing a Marketing 101 for brokers.
Great.
Yeah. A lot of the brokers that we work with don't need a 101, so this is not for you. If you already know what you're doing, you've got it all figured out, you've got your campaigns running, you've got your list, your offer, your presentation down, and so on. So this is actually for people who are either just starting, or maybe they're leaving an agency, going out on their own, or whatever the situation is. But so this is the basics, right? Got to start somewhere.
Okay.
Yep. Not a darn thing wrong with starting from the beginning and doing it right?
That's true.
Okay. So this episode is brought to you by our beautiful marketing calendar. We just got these from the printer, so I'm kind of excited. They look really good. And they have all of the shows, all of the aviation shows, and the important dates like the birthdays of our clients and other things in here. So this is really good stuff and very specific to the aviation industry. And also it has, our goals for the month and our book club selections as well. So you definitely want one of these if you are a broker, right?
An aviation broker.
An aviation broker. Not like the broker in Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Right.
Buying and selling alien creatures and keeping them in cages and stuff. No, that's not that kind of broker.
Good.
Okay. Cool. So here is what we know about brokers of the aviation variety, right? They have few transactions every year, but those transactions are very lucrative. So this is not like retail. This is not like any other kind of sales that you've ever heard of, right?
True.
Okay. It is very hard to break into this market. There's a very high trust barrier, complex transactions, and so on. So this is not the easiest sales job you will ever have.
No, and selling and somebody say yes is the easy part. Mm-hmm. After that, it really gets difficult.
Exactly. You are not required to have a license of any kind for aircraft brokering.
That's true.
Yeah. For real estate you do, for aircraft you don't. So go figure. And there are a couple ways of doing it, either with an agency or as an independent broker. So if you're just starting out, you may want to consider either joining an agency that has some support in some of the things that you need to do and will provide a lot of these services for you, or getting together with a mentor of some kind who can help you with some of this, because this is not easy. And, we talked with a lot of folks that are maybe former airline pilots, maybe coming from another profession or whatever, who are looking at breaking into becoming an aircraft broker. And sometimes we talk them out of it. And sometimes we talk them into either an agency or a mentorship of some kind with somebody that's already established.
There's at least 11 to 15 processes, each process having, 80 to 100 steps. Mm-hmm. So,
and we're not...
You can't know it all.
Exactly. And today we're not talking about the mechanics and the legal stuff and the documents and the processes of being a broker. We're only talking about marketing. Just marketing.
Thankfully.
Right. Exactly. So this is not about how to buy and sell airplanes. This is how to market your services as a broker. So there are really two things that you need to do. One is to get listings, and the other is to sell airplanes. And those are both marketing tasks. And those are the only things we're going to talk about today. Right?
Works for me.
Okay. So like the Roman god Janus with two faces, there's really two faces of this profession. One is two marketing tasks, really, of this profession. One is to get listings, and the other is to sell those aircraft once you get the listing, right? Okay. So first of all, first marketing task is to get a listing, because until you get a listing, you have nothing to sell, right? Okay. So every marketing campaign has three elements. And this might be the first of our podcasts that you're listening to, because if you're a broker, you may not have been with us from the beginning, or if you're just getting into the profession, you may have never heard this before. So this is going to be super elementary. If this is your 400th podcast that you've heard, go get a coffee, come back in 5 minutes, and we'll be farther down the road. Okay, so a list, an offer, and a presentation. This is how marketing is done in every textbook on the planet. We don't do random acts of marketing because it's a waste of time and money. And, you just start doing ads without having outlined these 3 things, and I can just about guarantee that you're going to spend more than you would have otherwise and get much worse results than you would have otherwise, right? Mm-hmm. You agree?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I remember you used to think this is a lot of work, and it is a lot of work, but it does work every time. So if you want something that is certain, if you want to take the uncertainty out of this, you really want to make sure that you follow every step, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay. And if you've tried some of this before and it hasn't worked, it's because you're missing a step.
And she should know. She used to do this for banks and other companies for years and years before she got into aviation.
Right, exactly. And almost always if a marketing campaign fails, it's because one of these 3 items is either missing or incomplete. Okay? So, first thing, the list. The list is basically who are we going to talk to? Who are the kinds of people that are the most likely to be able to give us a listing? So obviously you're looking for people who are likely to want to sell their aircraft. So obviously they're aircraft owners or managers or people who are in the decision-making capacity about that aircraft.
True.
So that narrows things down quite a bit. We don't need to talk to everybody. We just need to talk to the people who are in a decision-making capacity about an aircraft. So that just narrowed it down to less than 1% of the population.
Oh, way, yeah.
Yeah. So if you think if you are buying advertising that is too broad, that's the first mistake that brokers are likely to make, is they're wasting money going after people who couldn't possibly be customers, right?
True.
Okay. All right. So some of the things we might want to look at are things like current events. Right now we've got the ADS-B deadline coming up, where people who do not comply, they don't have a compliant system in their aircraft, they are going to have to do something different. So they're they're going to have to either stop flying their aircraft in the United States, or Canada, I think, is also covered by that in some way.
Actually, Canada just
has an extension, right?
No, listen a minute.
Okay.
Canada they were going to go with the same date we did.
Yeah.
They withdrew.
Okay.
So they didn't say when it's going to be due, so Canadian airplanes after the 1st will not be allowed to fly in the States.
Right.
So if you don't have ADS-B compliant, you can sell it to somebody in Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a good time.
Or sell it in Latin America, somewhere Central South America.
Almost all countries have signed up for this now.
Really? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sell it for parts. There's a lot of people who are in the market to either get up to date on this or get rid of their airplane. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of reasons that people may want to sell an airplane. Another reason might be if the fuel price goes way up or way down, the aircraft that they have may become suddenly less attractive to them. Companies that are growing or shrinking, if they've just laid off a lot of people or they've just hired a whole lot of people, their needs have changed. So, something has changed. A current event has caused them to be potentially in the market to get rid of their current airplane. And if that's the case, you want to be in the right place at the right time, talking to the right people.
And speaking of current events, I am not current on a Canadian thing. My information is about a week and a half old.
Right. And
so something could have changed.
And by the time you listen to this podcast, something undoubtedly has changed. Because we are talking about current events here. But there will be current events of some kind, whether that's a regulation change or a price increase on fuel, air quality, noise at a particular airport. There's always something that is causing the environment to change and somebody to want to unload their plane, right?
You bet.
Okay. So another thing that you might want to look for are people who have had their aircraft for 4+ years. that varies depending on the model of aircraft. Some people keep their airplanes for 10 plus years. Some people keep them for 1+ years.
Right, but statistically speaking, an aircraft that's between 3 and 5 years old is probably going to be on the market soon.
Right, for one reason or another, either because they want to upgrade, downgrade, something has changed by that time. So how do you get this information? Well, the current events you're just going to have to get from your newspaper and, use your imagination, keep your ears to the ground, read the industry publications and so on, because those come from everywhere. The people that have had their aircraft for 4+ years, there are some services like JetNet, Amstat, Aviation Edge, AirPack. I'm not absolutely certain that they have the ownership information in AirPack. They may. We're
Possibly.
not endorsing any one over the other. We personally use JetNet and love it, but you can use any number of things to get this kind of data and slice and dice it out to the criteria that you're looking for and figure out how many of the make and model that you are looking to list are fitting that criteria and might be worth a phone call or a postcard.
Right.
Or a targeted email ad or whatever. Okay. So that's the list. Now that you have a list, you've got a list of people who are likely prospects that may want to sell a plane, right?
You bet.
Okay. Now you need an offer. What can you offer these people that is better than any of the other brokers out there? So maybe you have particular expertise in this particular aircraft type.
Such as being type rated.
Exactly. You may be in a location that is really ideal for that particular aircraft or for that person. So it's really convenient for them to, you can go to the airport where the aircraft is and take the photographs and do everything. So location might be to your advantage. Connections might be to your advantage if you happen to be part of an owner's group for that aircraft and you know a lot of people who would be in the market, so you can use that as a selling point. Or credentials. And in this case, I'm talking about things like your A&P, if you have that, if you happen to be type rated in that aircraft, if you have a CAM rating from NBAA. There's lots of credentials that you might have that other brokers might not.
Right.
Since you're not required to be licensed, we kind of make that up with other things to build people's credibility in you as the right person to sell their aircraft.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's the list, the offer. Third thing is
presentation.
Right. Most people jump straight to presentation and start buying ads before they have really figured out the list and the offer. Okay. So this is where you do start buying ads or something. So postcards. These are kind of the traditional king in this market. Okay. Postcards are kind of the traditional king of this market. People get a postcard, and it's really easy to get a list from JetNet and send a postcard to everybody who has a 4+ year old aircraft of this type. So there's a lot of brokers who are doing this because it's easy and because it's simple and because it works. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't do it because everyone else is doing it. But that does mean that your postcard has to be good.
Yes, well designed, and the presentation, so that so that if somebody gets it, even if they're in the process of throwing it away, they see what you're doing and what you're after, and they might say, "Oh, let me look at that."
Right. So your postcard needs to do two things. One is capture their attention, and the best way to do that is to personalize and or have beautiful photography of that particular aircraft make and model. You can personalize it even with their own tail number. There are some companies that will do personalized postcards that say, "Are you looking to sell this aircraft?" With the tail number on it. That will get their attention and they'll hesitate over the garbage can. And then on the other side, you need to make sure that your offer is very clearly defined. This is why I am the best person to help you sell this aircraft.
Exactly.
Listing those credentials as we talked about. Okay. So postcards are great. A new thing is targeted digital ads. This is really cool because you can put in a list of email addresses if you have them, from NetJet or anywhere else, JetNet, sorry, or anywhere else. Once you've compiled your list, you can put that in to Facebook as an example and target only that person. So when that person goes to Facebook, they will see your ad saying, are you looking to sell your aircraft? They have had some restrictions in the last few months where you have to have a market of more than 1,000 people. So for some aircraft, like if you're looking for certain makes and models of Citations, there's 1,000 people there. Mm-hmm. For others, you may not have a large enough audience to do that kind of targeting. But that is an option that wasn't available to you earlier. Another thing, website. If you have the wherewithal to build or have built a website that attracts people who are looking for someone to sell that particular type of aircraft. And by search engine marketing, I mean search engine optimization, so that you come up first on Google when somebody types in, I need to sell a G6, or I need to sell a Caravan, or whatever. If you come up first in those searches, either by paid searches or by natural, what we call organic searches, that will really help people find you if that's what they need.
I assume that you meant by G6, the G600, and if that's what you're trying to sell, you're selling a line position number.
That's true. Okay, fine. Okay, so blogs, postcards, newsletters, public speaking events, there's a million ways to get your name out there and to establish your expertise and to talk about this make and model of aircraft and what you know about it. And, maybe 5 things you should know before you sell your X-type aircraft, brand X aircraft. Or public speaking at an owner's group, other kinds of things, answering questions from people that since you're a specialist in that particular aircraft type, answering the questions that people tend to ask about that, and other things like that. So those are ways that you can present yourself as a broker, and you can write articles for the associations or for your local chapter of the EAA if it's an EAA kind of aircraft. Those kinds of things are ways that you can do this. So there's lots of ways to do the presentation, and just about every marketing journal or information source out there will give you lots of great ideas if you get the list and the offer right. If you don't get the list and the offer right, then nothing is going to work as far as presentation. You can have the most fabulous, most expensive website, the most expensive postcards, and they're not going to work because you're sending them to the wrong folks and you're telling them the wrong things, right?
Sort of like buying a really spiffy looking airplane that doesn't have an engine.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about the other side of this transaction. You have successfully managed to run a campaign. People are contacting you, asking you to sell their airplane. Success, right?
At this point,
yes.
The first half of it, yes.
Absolutely, that's a win. So you go out, you have champagne, you celebrate the fact that you got a listing. So you got your first listing for an aircraft. Now, you wake up the next morning.
Say, oh shit.
Yeah, and hope you haven't had too much champagne because now you have some work to do.
That's right.
Okay, so once again, we're going to go back to the same triangle, list, the offer, and the presentation, because you're going to use the same process to sell the airplane.
That's right.
Right? Okay. Every marketing task needs a campaign. Okay, so this time your list is going to be
potential buyers.
People who likely want to buy this particular make and model of aircraft, right? So those might be people with a slightly smaller or older aircraft for sale that will want to trade up. You can get those from Controller or Trade a Plane or whatever. Showing this person is selling this aircraft. It's likely that they're in the market for something bigger, cooler, neater, more fabulous, right?
Faster. Sure.
Faster, yeah. Exactly. They've outgrown their old aircraft. Also, people who have the demographic profile for that particular aircraft, and I'm going to tell you what I mean in just a moment. So if you were trying to sell a Falcon, for example, what would you do? Where would you go? Where is a really good place to sell a Falcon?
A good place?
Mm-hmm.
Location.
Mm-hmm. People that fly into Vail. Right? Because they have some restrictions. You can only take off during certain types of weather.
Aspen, I think it is. Vail is okay.
Yeah, I think it's Eagle. Anyways, the closest airport to Vail in Colorado is a very high elevation airport with a really sharp turn coming out of the...
You can't depart IFR unless you can do it with one engine out.
Mm-hmm.
And the tri-engine version of the Falcon makes it a nice one to do that with.
Exactly. And so you have an automatic advantage if you find somebody who has flown in or out of Vail, and you can get this information from JetNet, FlightAware, a lot of different places. People that fly in and out of Vail or Colorado airports, the high altitude, hot and high airports, on a frequent and regular basis using an airplane that only has two engines. Right?
Yep, they have to depart VFR.
Exactly. So you could approach those kinds of people. Those would go on the list if I were trying to sell a Falcon.
True.
Okay. So what list would you use if you were trying to sell a Caravan?
Oh, FedEx.
Okay. Yeah, some decision makers at FedEx.
They use a lot of them.
You would not sell this to a Silicon Valley entrepreneur.
No.
Right? You would not sell this to a movie star.
No, probably Doctors Without Borders, something like that.
Exactly. So, there's a certain profile for people who need to carry a lot of stuff. They're in certain industries. They, Alaskan bush pilots, people that deliver a lot of materials and things like that. Companies that ship a lot of stuff, companies that have remote locations that they have to get to in a hurry. So oil and gas, industrial, agricultural, lots of things like that. So completely different audience, right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's your G6.
Oh. Is it? No, really?
Wikipedia said it was.
Okay, well, whatever. That's an entirely different audience.
That is an entirely different audience. So these would be people who are companies of a certain size, right? Mm-hmm. So we're talking revenues of, a revenue threshold of, any idea? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Revenue thresholds for people who want to buy that?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's somewhere between $70 and $100 million, depending on age, what's on it, and so on.
Right. So in this case, we're talking people who
have, or at least businesses with lots of money.
Exactly. I was going to say, people say you sell these to companies, you don't sell these to people, but in the final analysis, it is actually a person, a human being,
makes a decision.
That's making that decision. So, you're looking for someone who is working for a company of that size, a founder or a decision maker, who is in a position to buy or sell an aircraft like this.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're looking for people that have multinational locations that they have to get to for clients or for branches of their company. So, it's really, the better you know the mission profile of your aircraft, the better you know the type of person that's likely to buy this. Mm-hmm. So then you can narrow that down to, how do I find all of the companies of this size and above that have multiple locations? And then you just start checking them off. What we like to do is get what we call a top 10 list, especially for things like this where it's a super high ticket item, a super complex transaction and everything else. You're not going to want to broadcast a lot of advertising. You want a top 10 list of people who are likely to buy this aircraft. And then you're going to want to spend a lot of time researching those people and getting to know those people and cultivating that network, right?
Yep, you bet.
So, this is not spray and pray. This is sniper rifle, right?
It's not going to happen overnight either.
Exactly. So be willing and able to spend the time. These are not people that like to get in a hurry. in any case, but especially the higher in the airplane, the more time is likely to take.
Yep.
Okay? Because the more people are going to be involved in the transaction, and so on. Okay, so that's your list. Now let's talk about your offer. What is that in this case? Why you should buy. Go ahead.
You just talk faster than I do, so now you get to talk.
Of course I do, but carry on.
No, you.
Okay. Why you should buy this aircraft type. So, in the case of the Falcon, most people know, that have flown into that airport more than once because they get snowed in a lot and they get stuck there a lot. So they may be aware of that, they may not be, but your job here is to help educate them on why this aircraft type is the best for their particular situation, assuming that you know their situation and you've done the research, so of course you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's objective number 1 as far as your offer goes. Objective number 2 is to convince them of why they should buy this particular copy of this aircraft, right?
Mm-hmm. Go on.
And some of those things might be...
Why you should buy this particular aircraft depends on its mission and what your mission is.
Exactly. So this particular aircraft is going to have a different history. It's going to have different logbooks. It's going to have different modifications that have been made to it, from all the others that are on the market. There's lots of things about it that may make it more ideal for a particular type of person.
True.
So how would you choose between 2 of the identical aircraft that are on the market? What are some of the differentiating factors that you would look for?
Well, for me personally, I would go, because I ran a fleet of airplanes for the military aircraft, I will go out there and I will stick my head under the landing gear in the avionics compartment, and I can look in the where the APU is. I can tell just by looking how the aircraft has been maintained.
Okay.
Even if it has higher time than the other one, how the thing has been maintained is a hot button for me, because that means it's likely to last longer.
Right.
Be a better value.
So somebody that has maybe taken a very meticulous video of opening every door and looking in every crevice and having really well-lit, fabulous tour of this airplane would make you more likely to get on a plane and go see it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What else could they do to convince you that this particular copy of this particular aircraft model that you have already decided that you want is the one?
I'd like to know where it has been.
Okay.
I mean, if it's spent most of his life in a foreign country, I don't want it. Mm-hmm. I say that sincerely, but there may be 1 or 2, but maintenance in this country is regulated a whole lot better than other countries. And besides that, the logbooks will be in English. Mm-hmm. And if it's in a foreign country, it's supposed to be in whatever the language is and translated into our language. But mm-hmm. I've already discussed this with a broker.
Right, exactly. Okay, so, and there also are, things like customizations of the interior, maybe some engine modifications, those Black Hawk where they add the extra blade, other things.
That's for a turboprop, yeah. But I thought you were talking about a jet. But anyway.
Well, we did talk about caravans, so, anything. We're talking planes in general, so brokers of all sorts.
Mm-hmm. They have to know their airplane.
Exactly. So what are the differences between this and the other aircraft on the market? And so, if you study the other aircraft on the market, you can see, here are the things that are different. And here's how I can show them off to my plane's best advantage, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. All right, so now we have a list and an offer of who might be a possible buyer for this aircraft and a reason that they might want to buy this particular airplane. How do I get that information in front of them?
Many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Same ways you did it previously to get your list built.
Yep. So, if you start with a large list, you can do things like postcards and things like that to get it narrowed down a little bit. You can do targeted digital ads to people who land a lot in Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
You can do the website, search engine optimization, you can make sure that yours is the most complete listing for that particular aircraft type that exists anywhere on the web.
Right.
So if the others are 500 words, yours should be 800, right? If the others do not have a video, yours should have a video.
Right.
If the others have 3 pictures, yours should have 12. So overkill is underrated.
Exactly.
Okay. If you can use a blog, a podcast, a newsletter, that goes to a particular owner's group of a particular type of aircraft, where you're talking about these kinds of things, you can broadcast this more widely and use that. There will be a time at which it exits marketing and becomes sales, right?
True.
So once that happens, somebody's exhibited some interest, then it becomes being on the phone all the time with those people and answering their questions and providing them with documents and, doing whatever is needed to take that sale the rest of the way. So the scope of today's podcast is marketing, but, then at some point that marketing becomes a sales task.
Which is
right?
the whole point of marketing.
Exactly. Okay. So we have 2 more words of advice for new brokers or would-be brokers, right?
Right.
Okay. First one.
Specialize.
Specialize. Do not try to be the everything broker. Credibility is a huge deal in this industry. So the more you know about a particular make and model of a particular type of aircraft, and the more you are known as the caravan guy or the whatever guy, or girl, you want to make sure that does 2 things for you. Number 1, it allows you to concentrate your research, and number 2, it allows you to become known for that specialty, right?
Yep.
Okay. Second thing, network.
Know people.
Network like crazy, exactly. So, and that means online and offline, in the real world, in protein form, as they say. And also digitally, you want people to be able to find you very easily on the web these days. So all of that is very important.
Yep.
Okay. So being a broker, we don't want to talk you out of this profession if this is what you're dead set wanting to do. We just wanted to make sure that you're going in as armed and informed as you possibly can. So there's a couple more resources we'd like you to look at. And you can Google either of these, or we'll put them in the notes for this episode. One is 17 ways aviation salespeople can establish authority, credibility, and expertise. And those include things as simple as optimizing your LinkedIn profile and making sure you've got a good picture on there, to writing a book. So they're all somewhere on that gradient of level of effort, right?
Right.
Okay. But the more you do, the more of the 17 you have checked off, the easier your job as a broker will be, because the more credibility, authority, and expertise you will appear to have to other people.
I mean, if you were able to write a book on aircraft brokering, then on your card, you can say you wrote the book on aircraft brokering.
Yeah, especially for a particular type of aircraft, or a particular, at least, genre of aircraft, right? Okay. The other resource is a sales call checklist. You're going to be doing a lot of sales calls. So that checklist is actually really helpful to make sure that every call is welcome and well received and effective. So those are available for you. Also, our aviation marketing calendar. We just had our calendar come out, so we're really excited about it. This is the template where you do the one sheet for the entire year, and you hang that next to your wall calendar, and you've got the whole year planned out with some fabulous marketing that is going to take you a long ways down the road of getting your list, your offer, your presentation in front of the right people at the right time.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. And then, of course, you can request our printed calendar, and we will send you one if you are a broker or going to be broker, right?
Right.
Okay. So thank you for joining us. Go sell more stuff.
Yeah, America sure needs the business, and thank you for Mr. Ziegler for saying that.
Absolutely. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.